before I touch on them, one note on our roster. Seth Towns will be out the remainder of the season. He's going to continue to rehab and will do everything he can to return to full health. And I'm disappointed for Seth. I know he's had a go of rough injuries. He's a terrific young man and has really worked at this thing. It's a separate injury from his knee. His knee is actually feeling considerably better, the best it's felt. This is more a back issue, and this was something that literally we just got news on in the last kind of 24 hours. So up until that point, we assumed that he was going to be able to return at some point. As far as Rutgers, tremendous respect for them. I think they're talented and really well coached, and they are just tremendous at home. They're a good team regardless. Home, road, they fight you. Home, road, but they're obviously an elite team at home. When you look at who they've beaten, their scores, the quality of their play, it's really as challenging of an environment on the road as really you'll see in this league, both because of how tough and physical and aggressive they play. They have an elite defense, their talent level, how well coached they are, the whole challenge. So it'd be a great challenge for us, and obviously we've got a full week here, but I want to specifically talk about our first game.
Chris, with Seth, was there a setback, or was it just couldn't get to where?
Yeah, I think the doctors just said, hey, let's just shut you down and focus on rehab. That's what that was they evaluated him early this week, within the last, I think, 24, 36 hours, and that's the evaluation they made. There was no setback.
Would this preclude him playing basketball in the future, or is it
No.
really telling something like that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that'll be his decision. But no, I don't. This is not a career-ending.
Okay.
This is by no means a career-ending injury for Seth. It's a season-ending injury, but not a career-ending.
When you have a guy who has been through everything that he's been through, he talked when he committed here about how much he wanted people at Ohio State to see how much it meant to him to put that jersey on. How have you got an appreciation for, the fans haven't gotten to see maybe as much as I'm sure he would like, but I'm sure you probably have some appreciation for what he's had to battle through just to try to get out there. How much has it meant to him that you've seen to have this chance here?
Well, I think that's a real thing for the young man and his family. I think it's a real thing for him to put on a Buckeye uniform and to represent it. It matters to him. He said that when he committed. It was true when he committed. It's been true every day since. He really meant it. It's important for him to represent this university. It means something to him. He's a Columbus kid, and I'm optimistic that his days in a Buckeye uniform aren't over. I really am. But for him, it's disappointing that he didn't get a chance to get out there with his teammates this year and perform, because he worked all summer for that. But again, I think there'll be, I'm optimistic that there'll be brighter days for him.
Obviously, you've been without Seth and Justice for a while, and you've been holding out hope kind of over the course of these past few months. But does this kind of bring? Were you planning for this? Was this something that you kind of expected in terms of the depth of your roster planning without them?
No.
Without Seth? Or?
Yeah, no. I mean, you never plan for. Seth and Justice were both critical for our team last year. And certainly for the success. They both played important roles in kind of the season we had, particularly in January in our Big Ten tournament run. So I think they both weren't feeling great towards the end of the year, but they were important contributors. So you never plan on not having two integral guys. We planned in the offseason for both of those guys. But fortunately, we've had other guys that have raised their level and stepped up and been added to our roster that's given us some depth to be able to absorb some of this. But Seth and Justice there's been no decision on Justice right now. It's just, I don't think you ever plan for two situations where you have guys out this long.
And I'm just curious, I mean, especially with Seth, just the severity in him working back from this injury. Over the past few months, have you seen kind of have you been planning to use the depth, or were you expecting Seth to come back, or were you expecting?
Yeah, I was under the assumption up until early this week that he was going to return. Yeah.
Have you heard of just basketball activities have Seth been doing in like the last couple of weeks, maybe just to give us an update on what he had been done?
It was a lot of rehab. He had been done some shooting, some light workouts, some light individual skill workouts, and a lot of shooting, a lot of one-on-one individual skill workouts. But
have you ever had something like this in your career where you had a plan of two guys that were so integral to what you did last season and were looking forward to using them in a bigger way, and then had to change that plan this season and repeatedly change that from news that you get as the season progresses? Yeah,
no, I haven't. Thank goodness. This is my first experience of that level of, you certainly went in the season saying both of those guys are, Justice was a starter at the wing. Seth was, by all accounts, kind of certainly in your top 8. So to have two in your top 8 that really haven't touched the floor yet, no, that's a first time. Certainly for me as a head coach, really, or as an assistant for that matter.
How have you been able to deal with it?
You just stay in the moment and you really throw yourself into your guys. I think that, unfortunately, that's kind of what happens in athletics, is why you really feel for these two kids that have both played, because they're not played because they're both great kids. Your focus then has to be on your team and figuring out what your rotation is going to look like, and then really investing in those guys that are going to be available. To that point, Gene will be a game time decision. Again, I don't see his foot being something that's going to be long term, but he'll be a game time decision for Rutgers.
Chris, you guys are 3-3 on the road in Big Ten play this year. I know it's only February, I think 8th now, but is it too early to start looking as a staff at the seeding for a Big Ten tournament and things
Yes.
like that? Is it just too early?
Way too early. Yeah, it's a good question, but we're way too early. We're only halfway through Big Ten season for us, and some teams I think are maybe have played 11 or 12. I don't know, but for us, we're going to play 10 games. So there's so much juggling that'll happen in these last 10 games.
So with that being said, you guys play 5 more games at home. I think 4 on the road, if my math's correct. What do you have to do to get, it's difficult, but above 500 on the road, to make sure that when that time comes to start looking at, possible seeding in the Big Ten, you guys are where you want to be, because you were able to get some more wins on the road than you had losses?
Yeah, we've got some really challenging road games. I think you just have to take them one at a time, honestly, and you have to try to take some of the lessons you've learned from 3-3s. Having 3 road wins is pretty good. We certainly would have liked to have had one more, but I think you take some of those lessons you learned from those experiences, try to apply them to the next time you're playing on the road. So we'll take some of those lessons hopefully we learned at Purdue and try to be better heading into Rutgers.
Rutgers, I added this up. Their 5 starters have played 476 games, I think all of it at Rutgers, and combined for 337 starts. I don't think there's any transfers in their starting lineup. I could be wrong.
I think that's right.
Yeah, those numbers seem abnormally high. I know you got guys playing 5th year and whatever,
Yeah.
but this sounds like something really difficult to overcome when you're playing them in their building where
Yeah.
they've already beaten Purdue and Michigan State.
Yeah.
What's it going to take, I guess, for you guys to go in there with the proper frame of mind to know that their record doesn't, any indication of how
Yeah,
good they are.
that's an absolute true observation, Steve. It's going to take as good effort as we've had all year. I really believe that. Just because of kind of what that place, and I think many of you guys, I know a few of you have been in those environments, in that environment with fans. You know, without fans, it's a completely, Adam, I think you were there without fans last year, completely different element. But it's just a different situation with fans. So I think it's going to take as complete of a game, certainly, as we played on the road all year, Steve.
It seems like you're getting kind of deep in this process that there's been no movement to announce dates for the games that were missed.
I think one has been announced, our
Are you getting
Nebraska
close on
game.
that?
I think our Nebraska game is, am I right on that? Did they announce this March 1st? Did they not? Am I letting the cat out of the bag on that?
There was a tweet that was deleted
Okay.
from Nebraska.
Are
Well-
you getting feedback that it looks good that both games will be played?
Yes.
Those games are important to you, I mean.
Yes,
in the
they
big
absolutely
picture.
are. Yeah, I am getting feedback. We're much closer, without saying an actual date. Let me just say we're much closer on getting kind of the Nebraska game solidified than we are Iowa. But both, we anticipate playing both for sure. But Nebraska's should be announced here soon.
What is that process like of trying, because it's not just on you, and it's a tough spot, I would think, because it's not like your program did anything that caused these games to be canceled. I know Nebraska didn't do anything either.
No.
But when it comes down to trying to fit games in on your compressed schedule, what is that balance like of trying to work with the Big Ten and work with the other team and try to find a way that it makes sense for everybody?
Yeah, I think it's a bit complicated, honestly, because you got multiple parties involved, and everybody's got vested interests. So, I think that's anytime you have that situation, it's never that easy. With multiple parties who have vested interest and want the appropriate time for preparation for the next opponent and travel concerns. But like I said, and we're just beginning to kind of work with Iowa in the Big Ten. But Nebraska was great. They understood and they've been more than willing. And I think we've got a date set or just about to get set. So we'll move like that towards that with Iowa.
I had a couple of fans reach out to me after the Maryland game. They were wondering, obviously you can't play everybody. When a guy like Jimmy Sotos doesn't get in, a couple people said they saw you talking to him as Harrison checked in. What do you have a conversation with that guy maybe in that moment where we can't play everybody?
Well, it was more of a case of sometimes Jimmy's been very much in our rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes kids take that a different way if they're in the rotation and then you ask him to go in the last 30 seconds. So it's not the first time with a rotation guy that I've not done that. I've just left guys in there because, sometimes that can be, and Jimmy was great. I just kind of said, hey, I'll put you in if you want, but this is, I understand if you just want to leave it with those guys who are in there. So that was a conversation we had. Jimmy was great. It wasn't like I said, hey, you're not playing. It was more, I just think you're looking at kind of out of respect for him. He's played and he played in important minutes and leave it at that.
I got subbed in with less than a second to go in a game once in that exact type situation, so I can understand.
Yeah, kids, not just today, but dating back. I don't know how you felt, but sometimes, particularly if Jimmy helped us play well against Minnesota a couple games ago, so he's got to stay ready. I'm confident he will stay ready. So that was all that was about.
We were talking with Cedric a little bit about his kind of impacts with his, with his teammates, with the coaches, like off the court, and kind of what he's trying to kind of instill, what his legacy would be, his impact on other people, how that's a focus of his. And I'm curious about how you've seen that from him in just a short time that you've known him, kind of his impact and what that could, like, are you seeing that come to fruition with him and his interactions with you and his interactions with his teammates?
Well, we've loved. I think his teammates would say the same thing. We've loved having Cedric here. We've loved having him part of our program. We really have. He's a great kid who's took a chance on coming from a different kind of part of the country and has played a really important role and will continue to do so. And I think he sees himself as a guy who loves to play, loves to hoop, but also it's bigger than just basketball for him. And I love Cedric. We've loved having him. We really have. So we're glad he's a Buckeye here this final year of his college career.
He told us, if I can't create value in anyone else's life, then what am I here for? Have you found him to be a bit of a deep thinker?
I think we're all still learning more and more about Cedric, but what I found him to be is a quality individual, cares about the right things. So I think it doesn't totally surprise me that would come from, come out of his mouth, because he seems a pretty thoughtful kid and a really quality person.
Coach, can you speak to the challenge of having to play all these games in a short period of time here, but also not wanting guys to get run down or worn down when you have had some injury issues here with several different guys, and obviously that was a huge point of emphasis for you last season with how things ended up at the end of the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I think you have to ask me here in a couple weeks. I'll have a better feel then, kind of how, as we're going through it and as we're in the midst of it, I do think I'll have a better feel as to some things that I'm going to need to adjust or would need to adjust or tweak as a staff, because I've just not ever been through a stretch like this of games where they're coming at you, 3 a week, every third day. So I'll have a better feel in a couple weeks as far as how I feel like maybe the toll it's taking on our guys. And like I said, hopefully we can get Gene back here soon and get to a little more full health.
Chris, you talked earlier in the season about guys just needing reps. You scheduled IUPUI for that reason.
Yeah.
But to see Eugene go from needing reps to starting to really carve out a nice role to this little setback here. I know you said it's not long term, but what can that do, to a guy, and how do you prevent it from doing something?
Yeah, I mean, it can be really frustrating I'm sure it can be really frustrating for him. It's frustrating for us as coaches because we felt the same way. We wanted to continue to see Gene kind of stay in that rhythm because he was so important for us. But again, I don't anticipate him being out long. I think it's a frustrating thing for him. He'll bounce back. He'll be fine. How quickly he gets back into the rhythm that he was, time will tell. But I'm optimistic that once he gets through this, he can remain healthy for the remainder of the season.